Yeah, transmitter buttons.
All right, so we will go ahead and get started for today. Thank you all very much for joining us for our second TFSC meeting of the year. So like the agenda says, today we're going to be doing some more introductions again, because we've had a couple more committee members join us, and I know like we had a few people who weren't here last week, so just like one more round of introductions to get to know each other. And then we'll be jumping into our health and human sciences mock review for the day. And then at the end, we'll just go over like any final questions that we all have before we proceed into the College of Business review starting next week. So we will go ahead. Oh, that didn't work. That did. No, you're good. So yes, first big welcome to our new members. I know we have John joining us on Zoom from the Salina campus. And then Alex, you're here this week as well. Very nice to see you all, and thank you all for joining us. For all of us, I guess if we want to kind of do what we did last week, but we have a different fun question to do, just so we can all know each other again. Just your name, what position that you're serving in on TFSC, as well as your year and major, hometown, and what your favorite animal is. I decided to mix it up a little bit this time. So I'll go ahead and start. My name is Blake Phillips. I currently serve as Speaker of the Student Senate and the co-chair for this committee, as well as Michael. I am a junior studying management information systems and supply chain management from Tonganoxie, Kansas. I still struggle with that sometimes.
Good, then I should not feel bad then.
Yeah, no, you're good. And my favorite animal by far is the otter. I can stand at the zoo for hours and watch them swim, rub their cheeks, and like, I don't know, they're just pretty cool. There's an otter that dunks, by the way, like basketball dunks. If you ever want a fun video, it's great. So yeah, we'll hand it over.
My name is Jacob Hoffman. I am member at large from the Education College, so I'll get that one right this time. I am a freshman. My majors are political science and secondary education. I'm from Baldwin City, which is south of Florence. And probably my favorite animal is a monkey. Yeah, Curious George type.
I'm Cameron Cover, student body vice president. I am a senior from Overbrook, Kansas, which is just west of Baldwin City, Kansas. My favorite animal is the white-footed gibbon. They have them at the Sunset Zoo. There's something to behold.
But Lucy the chimp didn't.
Lucy the chimp is the oldest chimpanzee in captivity in the world.
Aww.
Held in Manhattan, Kansas. That's our claim to fame. Trying to find older chimpanzee. Yeah.
I'm Jaron Halling. I'm representing Health and Human Sciences. I'm a senior majoring in Human Development and Family Science with a minor in Financial Counseling. I'm from a small town, Caldwell, Kansas, which is an hour south of Wichita. And my favorite animal is a moose.
Scary.
I am Laurel Luttrell. I'm faculty senate president and a professor in the libraries. I grew up in Clifton, Clyde area of Kansas. I was the last graduate of Clifton High School.
Oh, wow.
Before it consolidated with Clyde, and I won't tell you what year that was. You can look it up. And I'd say my favorite animal, it's tough because I love animals, but I would have to say the horse. I have 3 horses and I've always loved horses.
So Laurel, do you have any connection or know of the oldies around those parts? Okay,
Sure.
very cool.
Yeah.
That's my one connection to Clifton.
Yeah. They're kind of more in Clay Center, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thomas Lane, Vice President for Student Life and Dean of Students. My hometown is Danville, Illinois, which is the same hometown as Dick Van Dyke. That's our claim to fame there. And also Gene Hackman, but I found out that most people don't know who Gene Hackman is anymore, which really troubles me. My favorite animal, I would be in trouble if I didn't say my dogs Gus and Junebug. So those are my favorite animals.
Nice. My name is Laura Bain. I am a second year PhD student and I'm an at-large member representing the graduate students. I am studying my major. I'm in the food nutrition, dietetics and health, little department. And my hometown is Fremont, California. It's 1,800, almost exactly, it's 1,803 miles away from here. And I've made that drive twice already, even though this is my second year. COVID has been fun. And my favorite animal is the hedgehog. They're cute and prickly and just real cute all at the same time.
Hi, I'm Chuck Tabor. I'm the Provost and Executive Vice President. It's my third year here, so I guess I'm a junior. Hometown's hard to place because I've lived in so many places, but my town of birth is Bogila, Central African Republic.
Wow.
Oh, my favorite animal?
Yeah.
Bison.
Ah.
My name's Alexander Paz. I'm presenting the College of Business. I am a freshman, planning to major in finance. My hometown is Garden City, Kansas. My favorite animal would probably be the red panda. Yeah.
Okay.
My name is Bryce Etchison. I am representing the College of Agriculture. I'm a junior in agricultural economics and global food systems leadership. My hometown is Tonganoxie, Kansas. And my favorite animal is Hereford cattle.
I'm Adrian McFarland. I'm a sophomore. I'm here representing political science or College of Arts and Sciences, and my major is political science. My favorite animal, I also own horses, and then I have to say my dogs as well. And I'm from Pratt, Kansas.
I'm Max Harmon. I'm a senior in biochemistry and global food systems leadership from the town of Inman, Kansas. I serve as the Student Services Fee Committee Chair, and my favorite animal, I think, is probably the honeybee, but it only narrowly beats out shorthorn cattle, Bryce. So cows have a special place in my heart too.
You know, Inman, Kansas has the largest non-man-made lake.
Yep.
in Kansas.
Yep, the largest natural body of water in Kansas is Lake Inman.
Wow.
It's not very large.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm Michael Dowd, serving as student body president, and I'm a senior in animal science and global food systems leadership, originally from Spring Hill, Kansas. And I originally came here for poultry nutrition, and so I would be remiss if I didn't say chickens are pretty high up on that list. I actually have a bird wall of different fowl in my room. So if you see me on a Zoom call and there's a peacock or something in the background, then that's where I'm at.
Very nice. John, we'll throw it to you.
Howdy, my name's John Martin. I'm the student government president here on the Salina campus. I'm a senior majoring in computer systems technology, as well as machine learning and automation. I hail from Bennington, Kansas, real small town just north of Salina. And my favorite animal has to be the axolotl.
Good choice.
Axolotl. Very nice. Yeah, so awesome to get to know everyone a little bit more, especially since we have a few new people here today. So with that, we will go ahead and start kind of looking at our review process while using the College of Health and Human Sciences from 2018 or 2019, 2020 as an example, just to kind of go through today. So that review, at least like the presentation from it, was shared along with the agenda, as well as some of the video recording links from that. So here in just a minute, I'll give just a couple minutes to like look over it again, just to make sure that we're all caught up to speed on that. But first, I wanted to kind of review our review process of how we're going to be going about reviewing these colleges throughout the fall semester. And so, like we mentioned last week, this process is going to be split into 3 different sessions. So the first of which is going to be a presentation. So this is where the dean of the college will come in and kind of present to our committee, talking about the fee and what has been done with it. I'll dive in a little bit more later. The second meeting is going to be our follow-up session / a Q&A. So after the presentation, if there are any questions that might need a little bit more research, we can submit those to the dean to have them kind of look over for the next week before they come back for our Q&A session. So that's where that follow-up aspect comes into play, as well as just more time for general questions about the fee. Finally, that third meeting is going to be held for some discussion, as well as casting a vote for the fee. And so that's what our 3-week process looks like. We'll be doing that for 2 different entities this fall, the College of Business, as well as the College of Arts and Sciences. And so first, just kind of looking at a presentation. So this is generally what we'll find in a presentation. A lot of deans will have a PowerPoint slide to accompany them, just looking at, providing visuals to better represent what the fee goes to. So number one, some of the things that will be on there is where does the course fee revenue go? And what was number one, the intended purpose when this fee was put into place? And number 2, where is this actually going? So we'll have numbers with that as well, but the dean will be able to present that from their perspective on what it's being used for. They also may touch on, what the impact of the fee has been. For example, if it's like a faculty surcharge fee, how many faculty have they been able to hire because of this? How many of them have they been able to retain? Different things like that. So they'll kind of show the impact of it, as well as they should be showing how like the fee was utilized for its intended purpose, which is the reason we're all here and what we'll ultimately be voting on at the end of the day. So that's generally what we will see in a presentation, which will bring us to the Health and Human Sciences presentation. So if we want to take a couple of minutes really quick just to look over it if you haven't had the chance to, and just kind of refresh ourselves before we get into a little bit of discussion on that. Feel free to take that time at this at this time. Oops, that wasn't what I meant to do. All right, just want to do a quick check-in. Do we need a little more time or how are we looking? Good, good. All right, well, let me go ahead and just get this reshared and then we can go ahead and get started. There we go. All righty. So just looking at that health and human sciences review, number one, I want to kind of open this up for a little bit of discussion amongst the committee members. Number one, just in general, what sticks out to you about the presentation? Things that are potential like strengths of the presentation, things that are potential points of concern, or just general observations. I know this is the first time that we've looked at one, so feel free to just share any thoughts that you have about that presentation at this time. Max.
I've had a question a little bit on it's in the first, it's page 3, student original course fee committee, student representatives. So can you go over that original course fee committee is the committee that was established once they decided to increase or add the fee, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are all of those names and their titles now, where did those all come from? Very few of them look like students.
Let me get that pulled up on my phone since I'm sharing on the laptop so I can look at both. Oh, you have it. Thanks, Michael. Yeah, so looking at that. So this would be what we now have as the CTC or the College Tuition Committee. So that committee, I think it was called the course fee committee at the time. That was created for the existence of the fee. So as far as student input there, it looks like Joe Augustine was a student, Alex Fees.
It's also confusing because Joe Augustine's a student, but attending University of St. Mary's.
Mm-hmm. My guess is that when the college course fee committee was there, he was at K-State. Like this was probably back in like 2015, I think is when the fee was implemented. At the time they were a student here, but now in the call it 2018 or 19 when the committee existed, that is where they were currently.
Yeah, so these are like alumni of the committee.
Correct.
Yeah,
so at the time they were probably students.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions before we go deeper into thoughts? Laura.
I have a question. It's on slide 8. The Health and Human Services college supports a certain number of FTEs. Are those are support roles? Is that right? So it's like maybe a department secretary or something other than faculty?
So it looks like it's mostly advisor and like instructors on the slide. And so the conclusion that I draw from that is like 12 and a half, whether it's like, advisors, various positions within there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
There we go. Any other questions?
Is this a review of the fee in total? Is there a proposal? I might have just not gotten down to it, sorry.
Yeah, so this is just a review of the fee in total. There was no proposal this year by the college.
Okay.
Did they include the old proposal? 'Cause
Right.
I'm not sure. Did anyone find that?
That's
Did
what
they
I've been
what?
trying to look
Sorry.
for.
Did they include like their original proposal?
I don't think it was on.
Yeah.
Because I was searching for it.
Yeah, I'm looking for like what the original intent for the fee was and trying to
Ooh.
line that up with how it was used. And I couldn't find intent.
Yeah, so the intent part I found in slide 1, 2, 3, 4. And at least it says that the College of Health and Human Sciences implemented a college-wide fee of $20 per credit hour to enhance the overall educational experience for students in our respective curricular programs. So I'm sure that like the application went into more detail, but that's just the general purpose there. Yeah, not much of an intent. Yeah, so if we want to, if there are any questions, feel free to throw them out there. But anything else, any other like strengths that stick out about the presentation, any like points of concern, feel free to put them out there. Max, go ahead.
My only last thing, sorry, that's like, yeah, too much time. But I really like the pie charts in how it was used and just things that stood out to me. 58% of it was used for personnel salary, and the largest share of the departments that it went to was the dean's office. Just interesting things that stood out to me.
Yeah. Anyone else? Who else has some thoughts?
I think it was on slide 17, titled Student Environment. And I thought that was really interesting that they put those individual stickers that said purchase courtesy of course fees. On top of that, I know that student environment was a main focal point, and so I have a few questions as far as what that 400,048 number, like, was that over the culmination of all of the years that the fee has existed? How much of an impact was that in relation to the original intent?
Yeah, for sure. Jaron, I'm gonna pick on you really quick since you're in HHS. So I guess looking at the presentation and from what you've seen during your time in HHS, have you seen any of these things from like the course fee / I guess, what are your thoughts on the presentation versus what you've seen?
I mean, like, I've seen improvements in those rooms because most of those rooms I've had classes in, and like even showing like when you go to like how the course fees are distributed in slide 5, like I understand all that stuff because family studies is most of health and human sciences. And so I understand like the money allocation stuff and that. I mean, other than that, I don't really have concerns.
Yeah.
But you can kind of tell with the fall 15 income versus spring 19, how like people coming into HHS is declining because of the revenues down $100,000. So it's just, I don't know if that's a gradual trend that is happening with everywhere, or if that's just health and human sciences, but.
Yeah, and I think actually recently, hasn't HHS seen growth in the college or?
They've had some small growth in the last year or so. It's been general decline prior to that, but just in the last year, there's been some growth.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so any final thoughts before we head on to the next slide?
This slide or these slides?
Oh, sorry, yeah, this slide. Oops. Yeah.
I'm really surprised that they can support so many graduate students on $183,000. Spoken as a graduate student.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That seems pretty small, considering that a lot of graduate students end up teaching the class and doing a lot of support for the instructors. Not that the instructors then are lazy. They have other very pressing things that they have to do, like research and attracting research dollars. So that's not a lot.
Laura, did you find a total like number of graduate students?
I actually didn't, which would probably be helpful to compare that.
Yeah.
I know as a graduate student that works in that department, I make $12,000 a year. And so I would assume that that would be maybe representative of 10 graduate students, maybe more. It's been hard to get to know how many graduate students are in my department because we've been in a pandemic. So I don't know that number, but I also didn't find it, to your point. I didn't find it on the slides.
Yeah. Any other thoughts? And feel free to put anything out there because there are no wrong answers on here at all. John.
On that note, I found it surprising that undergraduate and graduate research support combined was only 1%.
That was amazing. Really little.
Which slide was that on, John?
6.
6?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right, anything else before we head to the next slide?
Just,
Oh, go for it.
I would just piggyback on Max's thought. 29% is going to the dean's office. Is that going to student, like, workers in the dean's office? Is that going to some type of programming? I guess I would consider more questions on that.
What's university callback?
Yeah, so at the time, there were like some shortfalls from the university budget. And so I think Ethan would have probably been able to give a little bit more insight on that. But that was a question that was asked during the review. So good thought there. Basically, yeah, the university needed money back from the departments just because of budget shortfalls. And so the colleges were told that they could use any funding source to fulfill those callbacks. And so part of this fee was used to fulfill the callbacks, essentially.
Just a little more on that. So just so you know, the colleges are given a budget at the beginning of the year. And if we end up not having as much money as we thought we would have when we get halfway through the year, that's when a callback happens.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for that. Awesome. Yeah, and I know that a lot of this stuff with the presentation too would be better explained by the Dean of Health and Human Sciences. I am by no means an expert on this college, so I definitely just wanted to give have this presentation just to show what one looks like. So if there are like questions or like doubt based on things, just know it probably also would be conveyed better by the dean of the college during a presentation. But
you are doing great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Trying my
you're
best.
great.
There's been good observations that would form great questions.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, unless anyone has anything else, we will jump to the next slide. And so, yeah, that was generally what like a PowerPoint presentation will look like, and the dean will be presenting with that as well. So now we move into what our next meeting would look like with the College of Health and Human Sciences in our example today. So as I mentioned, if we have some of those in-depth questions about like numbers a lot of the time or anything else, Michael and I will try to get that submitted to the dean so that they can do some research and get some numbers to present back to the committee the next Tuesday. So then just looking at a general Q&A session, what type of questions should we be asking? And so generally, we can look a lot at fee use. So I know in those pie charts, just getting more information on how was this utilized? What exactly does this mean? Just to kind of find out where the money is being spent by the college and to really ensure that it's being used for that intended purpose. Again, lots of different things on clarification, especially in today's sense. Clarification is really important just because when we're voting, we want to make sure that we have a clear understanding of what we're voting on so that we have the best information possible and can make the best decision possible. And then finally, just really like understanding that fee impact. So whether it's like the result of the fee from where it's going and different things like that, that can be really important. But this is not an exhaustive list by any means. You can feel free to ask any question that you want. This committee is a really good way to just make sure that the colleges are using fees the way they're supposed to. So feel free to ask any question regarding that just to really help understand the fee more and just learn more about it. So with that, these are some of the questions that were asked during the HHS fee review. There's a much bigger list, especially if you watch the video. But these were some of the ones. So Adrian, good job on how the money has been used to satisfy university callbacks. Another thing that was asked was if the breakdown being funded by the fee, if that was going to be changing in the future, how that money was being utilized for its intended purpose, and then like potential reserves for the fee and what that money was going to be used for. So different things like that, like I mentioned, lots more questions that you can ask and that have been asked. So feel free to ask anything at any time for those. So next with that, we will move into the decision and vote time period. So depending on how many questions that we have during like the follow-up and Q&A session, if it's like a shorter meeting, Michael and I may ask just to like see where everyone's at and see if we start some discussion on that second day. And if we're comfortable voting, we may take it on that day as well. But generally, when we're going through this decision and vote process, I like to use the quote. There's two quotes that I like to use to kind of focus our approach, and that's trust but verify. So essentially coming into a review, we should trust that the college is using the fee for its appropriate use, but our committee is really a verification tool to make sure that that is the case. Another term that you'll hear Michael and I use a lot is spirit of the fee. And so generally we'll say for example, that the college is using something, they used it to buy like maintenance. We will ask, is this in the spirit of the fee? As in, was this like the intended purpose of the fee? And so if that satisfies yes, then we know where we're going from there. And so that does lead us to our intended purpose, which is to ensure that the fee is being used for its intended purpose there. And so upon the end of discussion, Michael and I will ask for a motion to accept or reject the fee review. And this is kind of that vote of yes or no to really determine if we want to uphold the fee, so it like allow it to continue to be operating if it's being used for its intended purpose, or to reject the fee review, in which case the college may be placed on probation and they would have to come back to the committee next year, show how they've changed the utilization, and then the committee can take action from there. So that is that process there. So looking at the HHS committee or the HHS review again, number one, how do we think that the 2019 TFSC committee ended up voting? And then number two, once we've gotten to there, would you vote differently in that case? Obviously, tons of explanation and stuff inside of there that we didn't get, but just like a general, what are your thoughts type of thing?
We don't have any colleges on probation currently, right?
This is true.
So I think they voted to approve it.
That would have been 2 years ago. So theoretically,
I think that the presentation generally shows that the dollars are very student centric. And so I feel like at least the spirit of the funding was met, that it didn't seem like there was anything egregious that was blaring a red flag. So I think I would have voted yes, given the little information that or the little time I've spent on it.
Yeah, for sure. This obviously is not a binding decision by any by any measure. And that was one thing that I especially noticed during that fee review was just how student-centered the presentation was. I know that Dean Buckwalter, the HHS dean at the time, really wanted to show the student impact and like the student follow-up or like response to the fee. And that was very apparent throughout his entire presentation, more so than the other college that we reviewed that year.
Yeah, I like how they included pictures of the trips they used the money for.
Yeah, the presentation is very well oriented, just even without the actual dean being here to explain to us. I mean, you get a good picture of it.
Yeah, for sure. Any more thoughts on that? All right, so I'll let you know. We did end up voting to approve the fee review for HHS, surprise. So that was like a good example of a presentation that you may see this year. So that's how they voted. Would anyone vote differently? Just looking at the information that we have today, again, like I said, obviously not binding by any means, and not having all of the information that a dean could present, but.
Can I make a comment? You asked this question like maybe 2 minutes ago.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
in relation to, it doesn't seem like they are excessively, like the fee isn't excessively high at $20 per credit unit, I'm assuming.
Mhm.
And so it doesn't seem like there's like excess anywhere necessarily either, that it's like, well, we had so much, so we had to figure out what to do with all of the money. And so like with that, I think it seems like it was an appropriate amount that they asked for, and then they like essentially were like good enough stewards of that with how it was very student centric. So that's not why I would vote no. That was just going back a conversation. So that was my note.
Yeah, for sure.
So then we can talk about why you would vote no, or if someone would, sorry.
Yeah, for sure. And
It's
that
off
year,
topic.
they did have like a reserve account for the fee. So like some money that they hadn't spent yet. However, Dean Buckwalter shared that they definitely had like plans for the money. And they were like, there were some bigger things that they were like working to save up towards. And yeah, the money wasn't just floating around, being hoarded, like it was going to be put to use in a certain way.
Yeah.
And in terms of the reserve, is that just for the HHS department or is that for K-State overall?
Yeah, so that would have been just for the HHS fee.
I'm curious, did he mention what were the big things? The reserve at the time of the review held 435,000,
Mhm.
just quite a bit, 10% of their total collections. So did he mention what any of those big items were?
He probably did. I don't remember off the top of my head for that one.
Felt like it was equipment of some sort.
Yeah, it might have been. I think I remember him maybe saying something about that. It slightly rings a bell. But yeah, any last thoughts before we wrap up the HHS portion of tonight? Awesome. All right. Well, thank you all very much for going through that review. So that's generally kind of what you'll see, obviously in a much more detailed format. But that is what a presentation looks like. So now I want to open up the floor to any general questions at all. Number one, about the process as we start our reviews next week, as well as just any general other questions about the committee before we really start rocking and rolling.
I have a question. It's actually about the presentation, so sorry.
For sure.
So what does, when they get money from honors, like what exactly does that mean?
Which slide are you on?
5.
Slide 5. Yeah, so my guess there is that essentially the college, like some of the fee goes towards like honor students, whether it's maybe like a study space for them, if they like the honor system with like the contract, being able to make any course honors, like maybe there's a cost associated with that, or yeah, I don't have the exact
Yeah, that's
answer, but
fine.
that's my guess.
Thank you.
Yeah, Max.
Is there a set of requirements? What are the colleges, I just about said entities, what are the colleges meant to come, like what are the requirements for them to include in the presentation as they present to the committee?
One thing that actually, once we get done with this meeting, we're gonna send out another email to Dean Gwinner and Dean Chakrabarty, really just highlighting the importance of having that intended purpose and the intended, like the original proposal. So that one is first and foremost. And then on top of that, other things included. So Ethan is pulling the revenue and expenses as well. And so explanation of those figures is kind of the second really piece of that. So
Yeah. In terms of specific requirements, we don't have like, I guess like a bulleted list of like, you need to have X, X, and X. We just really tell them like whatever way you feel will best represent what you're utilizing the fee for and how it's meeting its intended purpose, is really what Michael and I ask the deans to bring to the committee.
So I'll turn that question around and ask first you, Max, and then everyone else on the committee. What exactly would you like to see, and what would make the decision-making process more helpful if a dean presented X information?
Yeah, basically, like obviously my sphere of experience, pulling straight from student services fee, things that I've seen be really useful in the past. so we do have a whole set of bullet points that they're required to come with and present right off the bat, so we don't have to waste that time and follow up on the Q&A. Any alternative methods for increasing revenue elsewhere besides the credit hour per generation fee? I'm not sure. Yeah, I'd be very curious what tools colleges have to increase revenue elsewhere besides just central admin funding and credit hour fees.
Yeah.
A copy, and it was kind of included in HHS's, but a copy of their budget for the fee, including income and expenditures and the areas those are divided into. That is probably the most important thing that we always spend. It always comes down to that. We always spend the most amount of time actually looking at how it was actually spent. And then also the 3-tiered funding strategy. So basically the impacts of a X% increase, continuance, or decrease for student services fee. That's traditionally a 3%. I'm not sure what would be particularly appropriate for the fee here, but that's something I'd be really curious about to see what more could they do if they were allowed to raise their fee, and what would a decrease look like.
And so one thing I'll caution, I guess, on that is just because of the like trust but verify approach of the committee. You know, we ultimately, unless we determine that the fee isn't being used for its intended purpose, don't have the ability to like, in HHS's case, like bring the fee down to $15 or like to increase it. It's really our initial decision, as long as they've met the intended purpose of the fee, is to continue it. In the event that they aren't, then after the year of probation, those are potential options that we can look into at that time.
I think that part of the decision-making process was maybe after you had stepped out. Last week,
probably.
so we can fill you in there, unless there's anyone else who has questions about that specific type of question.
Awesome. Yeah. Anything else that anyone really wants to see in a presentation, something that'll be helpful to help make our decision? Yeah, if you think of anything, please feel free. Provost Tabor.
I'm just going to suggest something based on some comments that you guys made earlier. It seemed to me you were very interested in the student impacts that were listed, that were shown in this presentation. I would think that would be something you might want them to do, is really try to show that in addition to whether they sort of followed the purpose, what was the impact on students?
Yeah, and one thing to Max's point earlier in the meeting was kind of that like initial student input as well, just seeing where it kind of came from, just so we can get an idea of that. Yeah, thank you, Provost Tabor.
I'm gonna take a straw poll, just using all 5 of our fingers. So hold a hand out. On a scale of 1 being least confident and 5 being most confident, how do we feel about taking this on and listening to a presentation next week? Okay, seeing lots of 4s and 5s.
Awesome, yeah.
Cool.
Glad to see that. Awesome, yeah.
I think that speaks to the forethought that you both put into these meetings that we've attended.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. Yeah, definitely. I know obviously this is a really big task coming up to review like college specific fees. And so we definitely try our best to help everyone get as oriented and as comfortable as possible in this whole process. So yeah, Laura.
Kind of taking a step back just from Health and Human Sciences college. Different colleges charge different fees for their colleges courses. What is the responsibility of this committee to take into consideration that one fee is maybe, I for example, like $50 as opposed to maybe the $20 the HHS charges? Like, is there a certain amount of bias that's okay to be like, well, you're charging $50 and look at all the things that you're doing or not doing or whatever? Or is it, we're neutral, this is what you're doing, and so we appreciate that this is how far you've come to get it this high? And
yeah, so to that, like that second point that you mentioned, that kind of neutral despite dollar amount viewpoint is how the committee should operate. Because in order to increase the fee to a certain point, that has already gone through the college tuition committees at like previous times, as well as the TFSC committee before. And so despite dollar amount, our main focus is basically, is that fee meeting the intended purpose as to what it was before?
So I think to that point, the content of where the fee is being used was set by the CTC. And so that, considering that, you know, the majority of the committee is not going to be specific to that college, that's kind of the lens that we have to look at it. And that's going to be really hard for students in the College of Business and students in the College of Arts and Sciences for this cycle. But I think the biggest thing is just ensuring, you know, it might be a conversation where the size of the fee is too high, like you mentioned, Laura, where they're, you know, not spending money to the intended use of the fee. That would be a conversation that I think this committee could decide and determine. What I don't think it would be is like, oh, well, you know, the intended use was, you know, to enhance classrooms, but I think that money should have been spent on more salaries. So that would kind of be more off limits, because we would want the CTC to really determine that. So did that help, or did that just make things?
Yeah,
messier?
that's great.
Yeah, thanks for that, Michael. Jared?
Is PFP in Health and Human Sciences? I
Yes.
would like to see stats about that, because I know like we have like investment groups with money and stuff, and I don't know if that's being used from the college and from our fees, or if that's being used from something else.
Yeah.
And it's also a bigger field in health and human sciences. So.
So Health and Human Sciences is the only college that has department level fees as well as college level fees. And so that's an added complication.
It
PFP
is.
does have department level fees. So teasing those apart and understanding what the department fee might be being used for and the college fee, it's a little more complicated.
Do we do that in this committee? Look at okay.
Yeah, when Health and Human Sciences comes back, they'll have to do a presentation about all their fees, the college fee and I think it's 2 department level fees.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And really quick before I get to you, Cameron, I think that's a really good example of a type of like really good follow-up question that we can ask like a particular college that maybe they need to do a little bit more research to pull numbers to really get that information to us. But I think that's a great question that could be really helpful in the decision. So Cameron.
What's the fee review schedule like on this? Like Health and Human Sciences was reviewed 2018.
Yes, 19, sorry.
19, so is it every other?
Yeah, so we are currently in a 3-year cycle. We are in our A year, which is, I guess, like ABC is how they're laid out. And so we're doing business and arts and sciences this year. The B year is the College of Health and Human Sciences and the College of Engineering. And then C is going down the list of colleges: agriculture, architecture, planning and design.
Education.
Yes, and yes, education currently doesn't have a college fee, so they are technically in C, but they are only reviewed if they have a fee in the future. So I don't think I forgot college there, because graduate. Vet med is not a part of the cycle, I believe. Yep. Yeah.
Then that doesn't have undergraduate program.
Oh, yeah, that would do it. So, yeah, Max.
Is there any committee at the graduate level, even if they don't have undergraduate programs, who reviews the decisions and allocation for the vet med fee?
That's a good question. Provost Tabor, do you know the
There
answer?
is not a parallel process at the graduate level. There is a, the graduate council and the graduate student.
Graduate Student Council.
Graduate Student Council, right? But they do not do the same sort of work that you're doing.
Yeah. I guess a potential.
Because that seems interesting.
Yeah, I have a potential question for you. Is there an opportunity to maybe look into adding them to the cycle, since we have like a graduate representative on the committee.
I would resist that, but I would not resist the idea of the graduate students having a process where they reviewed tuition and fees. I think it is probably the graduate students would not feel comfortable with TFSC, which is almost entirely an undergraduate committee with only one graduate representative reviewing their situation.
Okay.
They don't have the same, so they don't have college level fees the way that undergraduate college level fees exist. They have fees, but they're often course level fees or things like that. So.
That is exactly what I was writing notes for. I think we should, and then the other problem is getting graduate students to actually do it and invest the time in it, because we all know there's an issue with graduate students getting involved.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll have a side conversation with you later.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Good piece of info. Thank you all very much for that. Yeah, any further questions in general about TFSC, what next week will look like, or semester, anything else?
I think just one thing is, I'm a little confused with what the spring semester looks like, because we spend time listening to presentations, then taking questions, then voting. And then we do those for the colleges. So then next semester, what are we doing?
Yeah, so next semester is going to depend a lot on if colleges propose new fees. So the colleges are going to have the opportunity this year to submit applications to the provost. Those will be due on November 2nd at 5 p.m. We happen to meet at 5:15 that same day. So we will know on November 2nd if there have been fee proposals. I know I've heard of a couple that are potentially in the works, so we will see where that lands. As far as what it will look like, so on November 2nd, Provost Tabor will then have 2 weeks to review the initial proposals and determine if they will make it to committees. And so if that does become the case, we will establish a college tuition committee for whatever slash whichever colleges that ends up being. And they will look to review should this fee exist, and they'll really look at the intent of that. If the college tuition committee determines yes, that fee proposal will then come to us in the spring to basically verify that the process was followed correctly, that the correct student input was given on this fee, and various things like that. So in the event that there are proposals, that will be a lot of our time in the spring. In the event that there aren't proposals, Michael and I are looking into a little bit more what exactly the spring will look like. I think there may be some potential discussions on like tuition models in the future, and just generally looking at things like that. But one thing that we will be doing for sure is looking to approve the tuition rate for next year to be sent to the Kansas Board of Regents. So TBD, but we're planning for either scenario currently.
Sounds good.
So, and I think one other thing to help, if you remember that chart from last time, I will make it a point to send out that PowerPoint when we send out the minutes. That way, y'all can really kind of dive into that, because some of the models will kind of help with timeline and understanding what that looks like.
Yeah,
sure. Kind of just going back to reviews. Will these reviews be including like projected costs and what the fee will be covering, and then like the future projected costs for like the income years for the fees, just in case like in the spring they propose a new like a fee increase, so we can kind of reference back to the cost that the College of Business or just any colleges that they have in the report.
Yeah, so projected future revenue. That's a good question. They may include it.
Or there's just something to add on, like, just to see if they know, if not just like for today, like this year's projected cost and what the fee is going to be covering, just in case, like if they want to propose a new fee increase in the spring, just to kind of reference off this fall review.
Yeah, so we should definitely get like information on what the fee is going towards and like both the prior and hopefully current year. As far as questions about like if they potentially like plan to propose a fee, they may share that with us. They aren't required to disclose that by any means. But yeah.
Yeah, I can add on to that. I think, Alex, that would be a really good question for Q&A. But we can include on like our little bullet point that we'll send out to Dean Gwinner and Dean Chakrabarty, is what is the future of the fee looking like? And that can really just be like, what do future costs look like? What may future scenarios with enrollment changes look like? I don't know if that's something Provost Saber, Dr. Lane.
I think that's perfectly fair to
Okay.
ask. Every dean here makes those projections all the time for their own budgeting purposes. They should be able to provide you at least an estimate. You can't hold them to being, exactly accurate, but they should be able to give you an estimate of what kind of revenue they expect the fee to generate as based on their future projected enrollment and things like that.
Alex, was that kind of what you were looking for?
Yeah, the answer.
Gotcha.
Sweet.
Thank you.
Good point.
I have an odd question.
I was gonna say, I see your mind churning.
Yes. So a little bit in the weeds, but asking about where TFSC is housed in like the university governing document structure. It's not listed anywhere on, so I'm on like the university handbook. There's a whole Kansas State University committee handbook with all of the committees of the university, even student governing associations, 6 legislative committees. TFSC is nowhere on that website. And it includes things as obscure as the out-of-state fees appeals committee under the all of the presidential committees and everything. And so my question is possibly to administrators, where's the governing documents for tuition and fee strategies committee?
I think that's a great question, Max.
I have no idea. That's a great question.
Yeah, I know it is certainly there in our bylaws.
Right, it's in the SGA bylaws.
But
I'm not sure if it would reside any place external from the SGA bylaws. I don't know. I'd have to take a look. Chuck,
I have no idea that you said that the other SGA standing committees are listed.
Yep.
Yep. If that's the case, I mean, I think it's a great question.
Yeah.
I don't have enough institutional memory, it's 3 years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
To know that answer.
We'll dig into it.
But we'll
good.
look into it.
Yes, yes. And wondering, and
Because
that's,
this is gonna bother me now.
yes, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was looking for it, couldn't find it, so I feel better. I was just thinking.
Yeah, well, I was having some nightmares over TFSC because I was like, where is everything even at?
We've been here longer than we've been doing tuition.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely take a look at that because I think that could be a really good thing to be added to the website, for sure. Is this like, I guess, say when a new dean is onboarded, I know we have a couple of vacancies right now. How are they made aware of the TFSC process?
So I actually talk about it during the interview process with dean candidates. It's such an unusual, unique, and I think really powerful thing that we have at K-State with student involvement in so many parts of governance at the university. I talk about it with the dean, whether they remember it as, in that whirlwind of interviews. And then in the onboarding, they get a financial onboarding, which their introduction to the budget model, to their own college's finances and that sort of thing. They get that from Ethan. I don't know whether Ethan talks about TFSC and that. He's not here tonight, so I'm not sure if he does or not.
Okay.
So they hear about it at several points early on.
Oh yeah, they got lots coming at them, maybe
Yes.
stickiness
It's
of
pretty
it.
much a fire hose in the beginning of the dean's job.
Oh yeah, as I'd imagine. Awesome, yeah, thank you. Yeah, any further questions regarding anything TFSC? All right, well, if not, feel free to reach out to myself or Michael at any point in time and we'd be happy to answer any questions. But little preview for next week, as we mentioned, we'll be starting our College of Business presentation. And so Dean Gwinner from the College of Business will be here to present to the committee. And so that will be 1 week from today at 5:15. Like we mentioned earlier, the following week will be Q&A, and then the following week after that will be our decision and vote. So with that, that is, oh, that got dark. That is all that I have for you today, unless anyone has anything else. Michael, anything to add? Cool. Well, with that, we can go ahead and adjourn. So thank you all for coming and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, nice to meet you, Dr.
What I have. Presentation. It's
So I need
Like bullet points.
That happens. I would say send that out to the deans as an example. For the future. Because they would appreciate it. I get asked. What do you want to see?
Right, yeah, for sure. I think
So
it's
you
a really
gotta
good point.
spot something you really like. I would- Maybe you saw part of something and then realize that sort of like you have a template in mind. They could give you that. So-
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for that suggestion.
Sure.
Other towns that you wrote that, this transitional period was not specifically focused on TLC. And so I think there were some institutional knowledge that got lost.
Yeah.
In the last 3 years also.
That's true.
Yeah, we're still looking away, trying to
Yeah.
find new nuggets every day.